Peace. Can you guys hear me? Oh my God, I just had such a Becky moment. This is so sad. I have really been sitting here. I shouldn't even tell y'all this. I should just keep retain this information for my own personal cool points. But hey, I am a human being too. I have literally been sitting here. How long have we been online? 33 minutes. I think I should probably stop this live and maybe restart it. Can I do that? I don't think I can do that. Because if I end the live stream, it's going to remove all this. Okay, tap in with me in the chat room. I know you guys can hear me now. Oh my God, this is what happens when I had 2 consultations today. And when I talk a lot, my brain is kind of in this lofty place. And I really wanted to do this video, but oh my goodness. I don't know. Should I restart this live stream? Okay, so I'm not going to do that. I will just trim the video at, let's say, 24 minutes, I think. And then we will just get started there. So, peace and love, family. What's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZaAli. Today is Thursday, February 26, 2024. I pray this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am recovering right now from a serious Becky moment. Becky moment meaning that I was actually sitting here talking, reading I was already in full 100% go mode in terms of topic, in terms of notes, my little reading passages that I have here, whatnot. Like I really was just sitting here and all the way going in, and you guys couldn't even hear me. So please forgive me. Goddesses have Becky moments too. I had 2 consultations today, and I've talked a lot. And but yeah, I've been inspired to have this conversation with you guys this evening. Okay, see that makes sense. And I was also like, why do my numbers keep going down? Like, usually by now we would have at least 50 people in here tuning in, right? It's like people are coming in and then leaving. This is making me feel some type of way, but like I said, I'm gonna laugh about it, laugh to keep from crying. So remind me, somebody in the chat room, that I said to trim this video, trim out the first like 20 some odd minutes. Part of it I was talking, and then the other part I was letting everybody, giving everybody a chance to chime in or to get notified that I was online. So shout out to everybody in the chat room. Yes, Becky, bruh, and it's such a like ding dong moment when you realize, and I've done this over the years. Thought I'm recording a whole full presentation and realize I'm not even recording. So it's kind of par for the course every now and then. But yeah, man, it was 24 minutes. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'll have to remember that, and then I'll just trim it out on YouTube. It'll probably take an extra 10 hours to upload or what, but whatever. All right, so let me just take a second. Now I have to remember everything I said. So the title of this video today, Decisions Select Your Reality, is inspired by a video I was listening to from Neville Goddard earlier today. He was dropping some serious jewels, and I'm going to read part of that transcript from that video. But when he said a decision is an act of selecting your reality, that really stood out to me because, you know, we think of consciously creating your reality. We think about changing your reality. We think about manifesting your reality. But I don't think I've ever heard selecting your reality, right? And so when he said that, in my mind, I was like, well, what's the difference between selecting your reality and choosing your reality or creating your reality, right? Why does that word stand out to me? And so in my brain, this was my explanation, right? Choosing a car would be like going to the dealership and getting approved for a $17,000, limit, finance for $17,000, and so you can choose from the cars on the car lot that are within a $17,000 range, right? Opposed to selecting your car, meaning driving to the car lot and having the means, whatever the means look like, to select whatever car you want off the lot. And making sure I'm underscoring that it's not about buying the most expensive car. You might be the millionaire next door that wants to go in and buy the Honda or the Toyota that is best on mileage and that has longevity. And you're not looking to floss or to buy, a $100,000, $200,000 car. You want the best car for the best bang for your buck, right? So it's not even about the material aspect of it. It's just the difference in selecting versus choosing. And so as I'm thinking about this in my mind, I'm also thinking about the conversation I had in my last Climbing the Ladder of Yourself, the consultations I've been having, those conversations, this repetitive thing about not being decisive. We also had a brother in the Climbing the Ladder of Yourself conversation that was just talking about being at a certain period in his life where he's like not really sure which way to go. And I think that a lot of us get to that point in our life because we hit so many different marking points or roadblocks, and we don't make the real decisions that need to be made. How the number of unhappy relationships and people that you run into on your, and I'm not saying all relationships are unhappy, but it's like the trauma bonding, tethered negative. I mean, I shouldn't even have to explain that with all the negative conversation in the ethers right now about relationships, about dating. Why do I have to justify what not my point? When 90% of the conversation about dating is negative, right? And so I have the transcript of the Neville Goddard video. I'm going to read a part of that. I have some notes that I jotted down before I went live. I have the book. This is one of my books I've been tapping into as of late, Saint Germain on Alchemy, Formulas for Self-Transformation. And a couple of other things in the news that we can talk about. Again, if you're just tuning in, and hopefully everybody will actually trickle in now, because for the first 20 minutes, I thought my mic wasn't on. So like 10 minutes of that, I wasn't even talking at all. But I think for like 10 minutes, I was just going in true Scorpio fashion. But I'll try to remember everything that I said so I can bring this point home about decisions, selecting your reality. So let me remind myself to remind you guys real quick. My Climbing the Ladder of Yourself program, which is part of what inspired this conversation today. I'm going to touch on some of the things we talked about. But our first official meeting is on March 8th. We had our introductory. Thank you, ZaZaAli. I appreciate you. See, this is how things work well when you bring offerings to a goddess. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for the Cash App. I appreciate you. We have an understanding. That's a little inside joke. It's just sometimes people like to hear me talk shit, and this is one of them. It's the most fascinating thing to me. But ZaZaAli is always in the chat room trying to trigger me and calling me Delilah, and using his lower nature to try to provoke my lower nature, but it never actually works. I'm always maintaining my square, but I do appreciate when you bring offerings like that. That warms my heart. But the Climbing the Ladder of Yourself 120-day program, this is for men and women. The information is in the description if you want to be a part of that March 8th meeting. Our first meeting was wonderful. So I'm gonna share a little bit of that with you guys because they're learning from me, but I'm learning from them too, always. And then also, so I had a couple of conversations today, and this decision thing kept coming up. And so again, this is a repetitive thing, and I am enjoying opening up my calendar and doing one-on-one consultations again because it is just as beneficial for me as it is for the people that I am talking to and assisting. So I'm going to do that again today and only tomorrow. And that's a Cash App only thing. The information will be in the description for that. $75, which is 50% off my normal price. And again, that expires tomorrow on the 27th. So if you hear this message after that, don't send any money. That particular special is going to be ending tomorrow, Friday at midnight. So decisions, right? And funny because one of the conversations I had earlier, pardon me if I skip around a lot, you guys, because this is my second rodeo on this. So I'm like trying to figure out if I said it already or if I didn't. So just bear with me and hold me down in the chat room, you guys, because I'm not really looking at the comments. I will tap in with you guys in a minute, though. I had a conversation earlier today, and I'm asking this wonderful woman who I'm talking to, we talked about all these things, right? And so then I said, well, if I asked you right now, tell me what you want in your life and, what that looks like and, like describe it for me in detail. And so she proceeded to talk and said this and this and this. And so I, of course, wrote everything that she said down because that's what I do in my consultations. I take avid notes so that I can, study the way you think and give you back to you, right? So you experience yourself in a different type of awareness. And so after she said everything she said, I said, I asked you to tell me what it is you want in your life right now. And you told me 35% of what you want and 65% of what you don't want. She'll be listening to this video. Hey, Queen. And it got quiet. And she had a moment where she was like, she acknowledged it because again, I just read her own words. And so this concept of decisions and being decisive operates on multiple different levels because a lot of us are like feeling this yearning and this wanting and this itch that we can't scratch, right? There's something that's like dying to break free within us, but we don't even really know what it is that we want. And we haven't really even established within ourselves, let alone the world. We haven't even established within ourselves what we actually want. And so we're out in the world just kind of drifting. So like the metaphor that I just used about the car dealership, you get approved for a certain amount, you choose a car within that certain amount that they have that car listed in. And then if you take that car, then that's what it is, opposed to selecting a car, having the means to go to the dealership and knowing you can buy whatever you want. So that's from the big body Benz or Bentley all the way down to the Honda Accord that's just good on gas. And I'm a frugal millionaire, the millionaire next door. So I don't even want the big body. I want the Honda that's good on gas. But just the concept of being able to selecting your husband, selecting your wife, selecting the reality of your life experience. I know if I could snap my finger right now, what do you want to do right now? I want to travel the world and be a student of the soul of the world and write books and research the soul of the world and connect with the soul of the world. And as I do that, I'll do a random speaking engagement in Spain, and we'll go back and trace the histories of the Moors. And then I'll do a random speaking engagement in Egypt, and we'll do it with the backdrop of the pyramids, you know what I mean, and all the vibes, the fly black shit that we do. And then I'll come back and I'll go to Chicago and I'll go talk to some gangs and some block boys, and we'll talk about frequency and vibration and energy and alchemizing the situation. And then I'll be in Hawaii learning how to surf just because I think that's some fly shit too, but also climbing the mountains and communing with the Most High, going on 40-day fasts on some Noah's Ark type shit. You know what I'm saying? Put me in Costa Rica and let me thrive. I can live off coconut water for sure. I wouldn't want to though. I want all the delicacies, all of the beautiful things. But yeah, I would absolutely take a worldwide trek and fast in the interim. I just need to be able to travel with hella books. Because that's part of my visual. I'm on some nerd shit for real. Dora the Explorer type vibes, right? So I need to be able to have like 2 suitcases full of hella books. Old books that, I got to be careful when I open them because I got this book in Morocco, and, the paper is kind of fragile. It was written in the 1800s. So I got to be careful with it. And then I'll come back to America and transcribe it and then recreate it and make it some fly shit under Alchemy Publishing. I'm just saying. You see how I roll all of that off? You see how it wasn't anything in there that I didn't want. I didn't, if who knows what's going to be happening by then, or like, nah, none of that. I can paint the picture for you, vivid, clear, concise, like stained glass. So again, back to the conversation, when I'm asking her what it is that she wants, and she tells me 35% of what she wants and 65% of what she doesn't. And so I have to pose the question to you, to all of us, how much of our daily operations, modus operandi, fits within that narrative? 30, 35, 65, 40, 60, 50, 50, even 50-50 is terrible. That means 50% of the time you are thinking and operating and feeling something that is not in your best interest. So this is the real work right now. This is the real alchemy, so to speak, of this timeline that we're in. And so I want to read from this transcript from this Neville Goddard video, because again, when he said a decision is an act of selecting your reality, that made bells and whistles go off in my brain. I love words, and sometimes it's just the right word being spoken at the right moment that'll make a light go off in your head or make a light go off in your heart. That's why I respect the power of words so much. Everything, I'm reading Neville Goddard now. Everything works out when you decide it does. This may sound like a simple line, a pleasant affirmation, or a comforting phrase whispered to soothe the restless mind, but it is far more than that. It is a law, a principle, a truth that operates beneath every event in your life. Nothing moves until you do. Nothing changes until you decide. The world bends to the inner decree of the one who knows their imagination is the architect of their reality. By the way, pause. My client that I talked to today, she told me that she's been going to sleep and listening to my voice as she's going to sleep. And it's been very beneficial and soothing, right? And so like thought about that when I did this video. Again, sometimes just to be able to have these one-on-one conversations and heart-to-heart conversation, but to lay a foundation for a high frequency experience, for a high frequency reality. There's a train in Europe called the Oriental Express. It's like $17,000 to take a trip from, I want to say I know it goes through Paris. I know it goes through Rome and a couple of other places in Italy, right? So it like goes span this 3-5 day, I think it is, trip through these different Spain as well, through these different countries in Europe. But it's $17,000, and I'm gonna go. You know what I mean? And so I just that just popped up in my head. I don't know why, but it did. But I was wanting to acknowledge her saying that, she was listening to me going to sleep. So I mean, that's a beautiful thing to me, to be able to like set a vibe and to use language and to use sound and to be intentional about creating a conversation in a space where you guys can just listen to me, and I can take us away from all of the chaos happening in the world, and maybe even the chaos in our own minds, and just fine tune us and pinpoint us into a specific direction or bandwidth of consciousness. So Neville goes on to say, some search endlessly for answers outside of themselves, in other people, in circumstances, in fate, in luck, in divine forces that they imagine operate independently of them. But there comes a moment when one becomes still enough to recognize that life unfolds from within, that every outcome, every victory, every delay, every struggle, and every triumph begins as a decision, a silent inner movement, a shift in assumption. You do not experience life as it is. You experience life as you are. And when you decide that things worked out for you, the world rearranges itself to match that decision. What does it mean to decide? It is not a wish. It is not a hope. It is not a begging of the universe to intervene on your behalf. Decision is the inner conviction that needs no external evidence to confirm it. It is the unwavering acceptance that what you have decreed within yourself is already so. Decision is the invisible engine behind every transformation. It is the invisible cause behind every visible effect. You decide and your world complies. You assume and life mirrors you. The greatest misunderstanding of human experience is the belief that life is happening to you. In truth, life is happening through you. Now, I know as I read that, I can hear people's brains knocking on the door of reality and saying, um, me deciding doesn't mean the world is going to change, right? I can make a decision about my personal life or I can decide something for me, but that doesn't mean it's going to have a ripple effect, right? But that same person, I'm willing to guarantee it. I even in the Science of Self, my workbook, where I talk about the average person is thinking somewhere between 12,000 and 65,000 thoughts a day. And 30 to 40% of the thoughts are positive, and 60 to 70% of the thoughts are negative, right? So that goes with the experience that I had with my client today, where she acknowledged that when I said, what exactly do you want right now? And 35% of what she said was what she wanted. And the other 65% of what she said was what she doesn't want. So most of us are operating in the world focused energetically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. We're operating in the world honing in on 65% of what we don't want. And that number is a figurative thing, but I think it's close enough. And 35% of what we actually want. And so how could you believe in this science and the magic that Neville Goddard is talking about in terms of the ability to create your own reality if your mind is working against you 65% of the time? When you say Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam, well, there you go. He goes on to say, actually, let me see. Um, The greatest misunderstanding of human experience is okay. I read that. You are the driver, your consciousness is the steering wheel, your imagination is the map, and your feeling is the fuel. When you decide that everything works out for you, you ignite a chain reaction that cannot be denied. You move yourself into a state where the outcomes align with that inner conviction. Now, I've had conversations. I could have a conversation with somebody listening to this right now, and I would be like, you decide if you once you decide everything works out for you, then that means everything's going to work out for you. And they will argue me to the end of the moon and back. What do you mean everything works out for me? I come from the gutter. My parents didn't. I don't have no support system. I've been trying this and I've been doing that and I can't get this and I can't get that and dot dot dot, et cetera, et cetera. All of the things, right? And so the universe is going to line them up with more verification, more validation, more options turned down, more doors closed, all of the things, because that's just the way it works. It's not fair or unfair. It is what it is. And it's fair and it's beautiful when it's working in our benefit, right? It's only unfair when the ball is heading in the other direction. So in the book Alchemy, Formulas for Self-Transformation, this is by Saint Germain. He has a passage in here. He has a section in here about words, right? And the title of this section on words is called, let me just bring it back up real quick. The Alchemy of the Word, Stones for the Wise Master Builders. If you like words like like words, that's just some fly shit. The Alchemy of the Word, Stones for the Wise Master Builders. And if you know about the stone that the builders reject, then you'll have a little bit more context on that. But coming back to the concept of decisions and selecting your reality, right? This is the book Saint Germain on Alchemy, Formulas for Transformation. So on page 390, he's giving these definitions for all of these kind of metaphysic, spiritual scientific words. And free will is on page 390. It says the freedom to create, the option to choose the right or the left-handed path, life or death, the positive or the negative spirals of consciousness. Having the gift of free will, the soul may choose to dwell in the plane of the relative where good and evil are relative to one's perspective in time and space. Or she may choose the plane of the absolute, where good is real and evil is unreal, and the soul beholds God as living truth face to face. Free will means that the individual may accept or reject the divine plan, the laws of God, and the opportunity to live in the consciousness of love. See, this is what I find to be so critical about like religion, different spiritual, spiritualities. And I know people always get uptight when you start talking about religion, but if you believe that you are abiding by and living by the word of the Most High, then nothing that anybody that doesn't believe the same thing as you um, says and does that's not like blatantly disrespectful should ruffle your feathers. And we're about to see what everybody's God is made of anyway. From between 2026 and 2030, mark my words, we are about to see what everybody's God is made of. So Allah, the Neteru, Jah, the Orishas, the ancestors, the universe, the Most High, the All in All. We're about to see what everybody's God is made of. So there's no need to even be online arguing amongst yourselves. This is how you know when I talk about the splintering of human consciousness, it's like they're divvying all of the sheep and all of the NPCs, all of the layers of sheep, because we got intelligent sheep and then we got ignorant sheep. They're all sheep, but there's levels. There's some king and queen NPCs. They're active on social media. I see them all the time. And people herald them as, let me just make that a joke. It would be really funny if it wasn't, it is funny, but it would be, anyway. So free will. We saw everybody's free will get tested in 2020. Right? To the point where people were thinking that they weren't going to be able to work, that they weren't going to be able to take care of their children, that they weren't going to be able to travel, that they weren't going to be able to be amongst their loved ones if they didn't consent. But like the book says, it's neither bad or good. You have the choice and the right to make the choice, and you have the right to decide what the outcome of said choices will be. Now you got to there's levels to this, So let me reread that part because it's kind of like spicy philosophy. It's spicy philosophically, right? It takes a little extra combing through to really decipher what he's saying. The freedom to create, free will is the freedom to create, the option to choose the right or the left-handed path, life or death, positive or the negative spirals of consciousness. We all have, on any given day, the right to choose the positive or negative spirals of consciousness. You can decide. Like Abraham Hicks said, human beings are the only species that can actually decide to be enslaved. And then somebody will say, no, only the white man enslaved people. And there's people walking around us all the time with jobs, with healthcare, with cars, with homes that are in complete and utter bondage of the mind, of the heart, of the spirit. So the positive and negative spirals of consciousness and being able to actively choose, decide, select. No, I don't want to be on that type of time anymore. I don't want to be on that frequency anymore. One of my other, let me see, I think I might be getting the conversations confused. She was either a consultation or she was in the workshop. But the sister was saying that she started recognizing, she got out of a relationship with someone who had, certain narcissistic and negative attributes, right? And so she started looking up content online that sort of explained that, right? There's a group of women who have been with men who are narcissists or who are, right, fill in the blank. And so it was good and helpful for her in the beginning because it was helping her to get clarity with what she was dealing with and helping her to heal, to move on. Once she got to a certain level of her healing, it became toxic because now that's all the algorithm is feeding her, and she's already risen above that particular bandwidth of frequency. And so this is where like really being tapped in with yourself and mindful and conscientious about the way the world is affecting you, because I've been talking in the videos about how we relate in the world, our relationship with the world, but the world has a relationship with us too. So I expect love everywhere I go. People be like, "Oh, you better be careful in California. Be careful out there walking in Beverly Hills." Like all that be careful shit. Like, nah, I walk expecting love. I expect people to welcome me. People speak to me everywhere. When I walk in my neighborhood, when I do my, people acknowledge me, people speak to me because I am radiating a frequency that expects high quality experiences with the world. I'm bringing a lot to the table vibrationally. You know what I mean? I'm here in service of the trees and the birds and the bees and the ocean and the water and the frequency that's keeping this whole thing in rotation. I am here to be of service. Having the gift of free will, the soul may choose to dwell in the plane of the relative, where good and evil are relative to one's perspective in time and space, or she may choose the plane of the absolute, where good is real and evil is unreal, and the soul beholds God as living truth face to face. Free will means that the individual may accept or reject the divine plan, the laws of God, and the opportunity to live in the consciousness of love. Now, in the last comment in the chat room says, I no longer see experiences as good or bad, but rather as an exploration of the human condition, right? So that's aligned with the second part of what he offered as a life experience. But the beautiful thing is that we get to choose, right? I was walking a beautiful, beautiful day yesterday in LA. I mean, the weather was just like first thing in the morning, but they were spraying. And it was obvious. It wasn't like one line here, one line there. It was like, nah, lines. And so by the time I got to where I was going and coming back, like it had cleared up a bit because it had dispersed or whatnot. But in my mind, I had to have a talk with myself before I started the walk. Like, am I going to be able to enjoy this walk, to take full deep breaths in? Because that's a whole part of my walk. My meditation is I'm entraining my breath with the way that I walk, right? It's the chi factor, right? And am I going to take this walk and allow myself to receive this sunshine and the beauty of this environment and this experience? Or am I going to be pissed off the whole time because the devil is like winking at me right in front of my eyes right now? And so this is like walking. Initially, it's walking a tightrope spiritually, but in the bigger scheme of things, nope, I'm always looking for God. I'm always reaching for God. So I'm always going to acknowledge the beauty in the circumstance and in the experience. So that's another thing about decisions and selecting your reality. Because 2 years ago, I was ready to leave LA. I was like, I'm out of here. Finished my book. I got everything I needed from this place. It's time to go. It's time to go. It's time to go. I didn't know where exactly I wanted to go, but I was completely tapped out of LA. And then God set me down and clipped my wings and really forced me to be still for a minute. And now I'm like, when I was, in my walks or when I'm like, I love LA. I'm so glad I didn't leave yet. I haven't pulled from all of the wisdom from this space. So I was indecisive that whole time. Should I stay? Should I go? Where am I going? What am I going to do? So like when we're in that space, that's not the time to leap. That's the time to stop and like be quiet and tune in with yourself and self-reflect. Did I build this life for myself, or have I been going with the flow? Did I select this reality, or did the circumstances of my life choose this shit for me? Because a lot of us, I'll say many of us, maybe even most of us, are living in lives and realities that we really didn't even choose for ourselves. You see the image on the screen says, I love the sudden realization that I don't have to put up with a single thing I don't like. That's real. But you got to decide in your mind, like, I can't do this anymore. This is not my way of life anymore. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to experience the world through this lens anymore, and choosing something different. The art of not explaining. And I have to, as a communicator and as a person that's always trying to like make sure I'm being understood, that I'm understanding people. I pride myself on being a good listener. And so because I pride myself on being a good listener, I be expecting, yes, I'm ebonics. That's the only way to say it. I'd be expecting people to be a good listener to me too. But we just not living in a world of good listeners. So that's just a jewel I'm gonna drop on you guys and keep dropping on you guys. Become a good listener. And I ain't talking about listening to people just so you can have a response. That's the most irritating shit in the world. Trying to communicate with a know-it-all. Before I even finish my sentence, you were already telling me what I was giving me the answer to what I was just saying. So, but the art of communication, there's a video, and I think I referenced this before. Maybe I didn't play it, but it was Gary Vee talking about how the real world is getting ready to make a comeback, right? And so all of the physical products, that are digitized now, people are going to be, looking for physical, right? So I'm right on time. But and physical experiences, like face-to-face experiences, people are going to want to be out in the world again. They want to experience real life. They want to touch things, they want to hold things, they want to experience things in real time, right? And so going back to the thing about decisions and selecting your reality, in one breath you got people saying, if you don't get on this AI bandwagon, you're going to get left behind. The world is going to swallow you up and spit you out, and you're not going to have any value anymore. It's a terrible spell for you guys to be casting on humanity. It's a terrible spell for you guys to be casting on humanity, that if they don't submit to a certain program or to a certain agenda, that they're going to be useless and have no value. That sounds like the devil's mind to me. Maybe you should be a little bit more careful about that. But the art of not explaining, being decisive about having people in your life and intentional and in your mind's eye, and not settling. I want to have people in my life that I don't have to constantly over explain myself and do checks and balances and play mind games and trying to figure out if I'm walking on eggshells. Are they hearing me correctly? Did they take that wrong? Like all of the things. I don't have time for that shit. So I'm practicing the art of not explaining. I'll just close the door. You can, you will. End of story. Let's go. You can, you will. End of story. Let's go. What area of your life are you that emphatic about? What thing that you do on a consistent basis, hobby, job, business, school, research, studying, training, practicing, focusing, what's your thing or things that you zone out? When is the last time you zoned out? I zone out before I do these videos. I really do. I don't, depending on if it's a headline news, that can take me a week or so to put together. But like these type of videos, before I actually sit down and turn the camera on, I like zone out because I want to make sure I say everything that I feel impelled or inclined to say. And when I feel inspired to do these videos, yeah, I got to do the videos because I promise you, I'll go 6 months and be like, I don't want to be online. It's like a real, like I have to practice coming into these spaces and dealing with what comes with being in these spaces. But when I feel the urge to sit down and chop it up with you guys and talk about these things, then yeah, I'm on it because I'm being decisive about it. I even set an intention, like I need to put more content up on YouTube. I'm going to come back and put some more energy and spread some more love on YouTube and be intentional about raising the vibration, because this is the time for the divine feminine and the goddess energy. And when I say divine feminine, all of the the alchemists listening to me know that I'm not only talking about women. I'm just reading my notes. Sometimes my thoughts flow so fast and I'm like writing them down and it makes sense when I'm writing, and I'm reading like, what the hell does that even say? Someone, okay, so this is what I wrote, right? Because it was a half cocked pause thought. But identifying the someone or the some things in your life that are actively lowering your vibration. Now, if there's someone or something that's active in your life, as soon as I said that, a light went off. You saw the person in your mind. You saw the thing, whatever that thing is, in your mind's eye, right? So having somebody that is somebody or something that is actively consistently lowering our vibration, and we know, and yet they remain. And so the decisiveness, the whole idea of choosing yourself. I remember when people used to talk about self-love, and I would be like, that just sounded like such a foreign concept to me. Like, what does that even mean? How can you not love yourself? First of all, that was like in my mind as a child, that was a baseline thing. But then it was also like, yeah, that sounds like woo woo. And out here on the ground, it's real in the field. I'm thinking from that vantage point. As a child, yes, as a child, I knew I was growing up in a war zone. I was seeing it from every different direction, right? So the universe is separating you from people who have been secretly discrediting your character behind closed doors. Spiritual warfare is a real thing. I'm going to show this video clip in a second of this sister who's talking about pledging as a Delta and all of the nefarious and wicked things that they were doing during that process, and how she was accepting accountability for the role she played in that, right? And so that's one of those ways to me that psychological warfare, these lower vibrational beings latch on to, in that situation with hazing and whatnot, and being physically and mentally and emotionally abusive. This is how lower natured entities, aka devils or demons or satanic entities, right, attach on to people, potentially innocent people, because you signing up and doing a ritual that's opening you up to humiliation and abuse. And then you're able to transition and transcend, hopefully, that experience, right? And still go out into the world. But now you've opened yourself up to a certain type of vibration through that ritualistic experience. And depending on your vibration, right? Because that's the key to all of this, how you're operating in the world. Some people, how they say, the rose that grew from concrete, right? You live in the hood in Brooklyn or the Bronx or Miami or anywhere across America, right? Oakland, Compton, Detroit, Flint, Chicago, right? You grew up in one of these war zones, right? And so basically the baseline rules apply to everybody, right? There's potential for gangs, there's potential for prostitution, there's potential for drug addicts. You could get turned out, right, on any given day. You might potentially get caught up in some gunfire, right? There's ignorance everywhere. The liquor store is screaming to you to self-sabotage yourself every day you walk past from school, right? All of these lower vibrational entities in these spaces, and yet there are always those amongst us who transcend those experiences and make it out. Same cards, same hand, right? So same experiences, right? Give or take. All of us navigating these experiences, not being properly loved, right? All of the things that come with that, being a witness to post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, all of the things. And yes, some of us are able to come out of those experiences and alchemize the darkness of those experiences and come out on the other side and still be radiating light and still be raising the vibration when we walk into a room and still be emanating a higher vibrational energy. That's where we are right now in 2026. It's all about your frequency and your vibrational resonance. And if you just out in the world operating with a mask, this other thing I put in my notes, you know, you if you go to a job and work 8 hours or 10 hours a day, and you hear people say all the time, especially Black people, right? Them people don't know me. I go up there and work for 8 hours, 10 hours. I do what I do. I keep my head down. Small talk, that, all the things. But them people don't really know me. So then who are you at the job? We know you're not being the real you because you don't want them people to know you. So for 8 hours or 10 hours out of your day, and this is not about don't work a job. This is way bigger than that. This is us really actively thinking about how we're showing up in the world, selecting your reality. I don't have to code switch in anything I do. You know what I mean? I can be a professional Black girl, or I can be a hood Black girl, or I can be a nerd or a yogi, or all the things that represent my person. I'm not code switching for nothing in any room that I go in. I do know how to speak the language and talk the talk and walk the walk in any room I go in. But yeah, this is a part of the selection process for me. I've done the trial and error and the struggle of being an entrepreneur and finding and making my way through. I've earned that shit. I'm not changing in any room I walk in. That's a decision that I made a long time ago. I've been committed to being self-employed and to making this publishing work, in business work. Originally, it was making the business work by any means necessary. And now it's legacy. I want and will become a staple in the publishing industry worldwide. In 2022, I was trying to create a vision board and I got stuck. I couldn't settle on the things that I wanted to put on my vision board. And that had never happened to me before. So I was like scared, right? Like, what's going on? Am I losing my mojo? Right? And then I realized one day, because I make my vision boards art, right? So I'm getting the glitter, but then I'm getting the different types of paper. I'm making it an art piece, right? So I got a whole lot of stickers, all the things, right? And I realized one day I'm just sitting in my office and I saw the stuff that I bought, all the crafts or whatnot, just sitting on the floor. And one of the papers were, I had bought some design paper, that expensive design paper, but it looks like one of them was like bricks, right? And then another one was grass, and then another one was wood. And I bought and I think there was another one that was like stone. And I bought those in the store. In my mind, I was thinking about building a home, but probably building a compound. It was either or, because probably a compound, but I don't know. But the point is, I'm sitting in my office. I done already like gave up on the fact I can't make the vision board up. This is counterproductive. Let me just push away from it. So months pass. So I'm sitting there looking one day, and my voice spoke to me and told me, as I'm looking at, now remember, I went to school for interior and architectural design. I didn't get my degree, but I went for 3 years in San Francisco State University in San Francisco, a premier design, architecture and design school, fine arts school, right? I didn't finish my degree because I ended up going to Atlanta, started doing radio, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But this is a staple of mine, a love of mine, the world of building and architecture and design. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking, and a light went off in my head, and a voice spoke to me and told me, you've been setting the bar too low. And that's why I was struggling with the vision board, because my previous vision board was like how much money I wanted to make a month in passive income, the car that I wanted 3 trips. I wanted some art. I ended up I manifested most of the stuff on it, but it was all like physical, tangible things, right? And so we're post 2020. Satan came from behind the curtain. It's big. Everything is big stakes now, right? The stakes are high at this point. So I'm still trying to construct in my mind's eye a vision board, but I'm also like, we're in a different time now. The stuff that mattered to me then doesn't matter like that anymore, right? So in this moment, I'm having this realization that I'm looking at these graphics on the floor next to my foam board, thinking about my vision board, and my higher self spoke to me and said, "You've been setting the bar too low." And then bells and whistles went off in my mind. I bought that graphic paper because I wanted to signify creating a compound that I've already visualized in my mind's eye and what it's going to entail and all of the things. So again, going back to the point I made originally, and shout out to everybody who is tuning in a little bit later now. When you come back and watch this video, the starting point is at like 20 minutes. I had a Becky moment and didn't realize 10 of those minutes I was trying to talk and start the video, and I didn't realize that I hadn't even brought myself on stage. So yes, goddesses have Becky moments too. Very brief though, I must say. So, but I'll make sure that I pin that, or I'm going to trim it out. But just so you guys know, if you come back to watch this video, but I will end up trimming that out. I also announced at the beginning of the video, because I've been doing more consultations lately and they've been going really, really well. I've been referencing three of them in this conversation. So I will briefly offer these specials for a one-on-one consultation, 50% off, again, up until tomorrow, Friday at midnight. And every time I run these specials, I get 2 or 3 signups. So it's a good flow. I do my consultations on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and every other Saturday. And yeah, I really am getting back in the groove of like talking to people and help them to work through the nooks and crannies of their life experiences. And so if you want to sign up for that, Cash App only, the information is in the description. My Climbing the Ladder of Yourself 120-day program for men and women. Our next meeting is going to be on March 8th. We had a wonderful time and a wonderful conversation this weekend, and some of what I'm talking about today was inspired by that. Also, in that conversation, we had a sister who was talking about mental rumination and how she was observing, because the thing I was honing in on is like our mind, right? How we're thinking. If we, that little voice in the back of your head that's like the God on one shoulder and devil on one shoulder, right? You can do this. It's not going to take long. Everything's going to work out in your favor. Something's going to give. Something always gives. God always comes through. There's always an angel on your path, right? Things can work out for you. You deserve a win. You're a hard worker. You're a good person. You got a good heart. You got good character, right? All the things that our inner being, that the God consciousness in us is supposed to be saying to us all the time. Because we're always talking to ourselves, right? You're always speaking to yourself. So shouldn't that voice always be loving, reaffirming, nurturing, inspiring, passionate, creative, invigorating? And see, we're still on that 35-65 percentage ratio that I talked about before. Right? As a sample, 65% of we focus on what we don't want. 35% is what we actually want. So we're thinking, eating, drinking, living, breathing. 35% of what we don't want, and 35% of what we want and 65% of what we don't want. What's the instructions to the Most High? What's the instructions to the universe? And then we stay in this rabbit hole and on this hamster wheel of just running around in circles. So that's one of the things we're working on in the Climbing the Ladder of Yourself program. No, we want off the hamster wheel. And there's the hamster wheel of the world, right? Debt, working jobs, corporate world, 9 to 5, traffic, right? All of the things that come with the baseline survival in this world. But then more importantly, there is the hamster wheel in our minds, the rumination. And so in the meeting that we had this past weekend, she was acknowledging, as I'm sitting here and professing and all passionate and fired up like I am now, about being mindful of our thinking and about how our thoughts can be anti-you. Your thoughts can be anti-you. So we're in the midst of using language and conversation to raise her vibration and to pull her out of the mental rumination. And she acknowledges She said, I was just sitting here. She said, I have this problem where I'll like see a person or hear a person and I don't like something about them. And then I'll just start attacking them in my mind. Something to that effect. That might not be what she said verbatim, but that's basically what she was saying. And so basically acknowledging, like, whether it was somebody in our conversation, whether it was somebody in her background, in her direct environment, she might have been looking, scrolling on her phone while we're talking. We had a break, right? So it could have been a number of different things, but she's stepping outside of herself and becoming aware of herself, because whatever she's thinking negatively about that other person doesn't mean shit to them. She on a hamster wheel in her mind in that moment when we've all come together to try to talk about something good for her life, good for her well-being and her mental, you know what I mean? And going and without even deciding, without even realizing, without even recognizing that your mind has turned against you in that moment. And now instead of you being here with us in this collective conversation and thinking about something that's good for yourself, you in attack mode against somebody else, and all they are is the object of your affection. It's really about you, the object of your, let's say, observation, but really it's your mind attacking you, turning against you, working against you. So that passage on the screen, the universe is separating you from people who have been secretly discrediting your character behind doors. And that also means you secretly discrediting other people's character behind doors too. We be wanting a lot of things from the world that we're not willing to give. Thank you so much, Zookeeper. I appreciate you for the super chat. FYI, my YouTube name is pronounced Zookeeper. Anyway. You can, you will, end of story. Let's go. I felt that in my soul. Thank you for the extra power of encouragement and moving on. Yeah, man, that's what we're here for. We're here to magnify the frequency of love. We're here to magnify I spoke at John Burroughs Middle School, and I did a Black History presentation this past week. And in it, I showed the Queen Amana Shaketo and her gold. Ancient People, by the way, a social studies and history textbook. Your girl is a scholar and a historian too. I'm just saying that information is in the description as well. But I was showing Amana Shaketo, and I was showing all of her gold, her beautiful rings and necklaces and all of these beautiful jewels and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, the beauty and the enhancement of the earth is what we are supposed to be contributing to. So when I say being decisive and like selecting your reality, like, yeah, I'm moving in the world with the intention to beautify the spaces and the places and the conversations that I'm in. You're going to remember me. And I don't say that like to be arrogant or like, because trust me, there's plenty of days I don't really have a in front of the scene. I don't really want to be seen, or you know what I mean? I'm really a play the background type of girl. But even when I play the background, if I'm talking to the janitor or the guy that's just cleaning the tables, that's why I'm learning Spanish. Not that everybody cleaning the tables is Spanish, but a lot of them in California are. What's up, my brother? Mi hijo? Or hermanito? Or hermano? So, the going back to the original point, right? Because those of you guys who came in later, I was talking about in my one-on-one consultation how I asked my client, all right, so, and this is after we've been talking for a minute. And so I was like, all right, okay, I hear you. So tell me right now what it is, if you could decide right now what it is that you want in your life, tell me, run it. And I didn't say it like that, it was that I was inspiring and encouraging, right? But after she gave me, she said like maybe 5, 6, 7 sentences, right? I'm writing it all down, right? And so after she says it, and so I read it all back to her, and I said, you told me 35% of what you want and 65% of what you don't want. And that's how most of us are out in the world operating, telling the universe, telling God in our prayers, right? The prayer is 35% confident and assured, and then 65% desperation and doubt. And so we're out in the world giving the universe instructions. 35%, I believe in myself. I love in myself. I can do it. I can. I will. Let's go. Right. And then 65% is, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't have a support system. I don't have the money. I'm getting older. I don't have enough time. I'm a woman, and all the things that come with a woman. I'm a man and a black man in America, and all the things that come with being a black man in America, right? I got a felony. I've been in trouble with the law before. I didn't finish school. I got, two baby daddies or three baby daddies, or I got child support and I'm embarrassed about it, or I'm all the things, all that negative shit working against you. And it's in the ethers and it's in the collective consciousness. But guess what? More importantly, it's in your mind. And so I'm pointing out in the Climbing the Ladder of Yourself workshop to the sister, like, you just realized you just went left. You acknowledged you went left. You stepped outside of yourself and observed yourself, but it all happened in your mind. You sat right here. You haven't moved. I'm looking at you on the camera the whole time. So you didn't get up and walk away and go figure it out. This all happened while you're sitting right in front of us on the camera. You didn't go anywhere. It all happened in your mind. And this is what's happening to all of us consistently on a day-to-day basis. It's all happening in our minds. When you get triggered from trauma, and you go back in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit, you go back to a previous time, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, when somebody said something that stung you, that was a gut punch that you can never forget, or somebody did you a certain type of way, or handled you, or mistreated you, or abused you. You literally in real time will be physically in one space, and mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and physically in terms of reaction, completely check out and go somewhere else. And then have all of the physical ramifications right here in real time. That's how powerful the mind is. That's how delicate and fragile human beings are. That's how important it is for us to be mindful and careful about the people that we bring into our lives, the people we let have access to us. He said, Mensa Talk said, the frailty of man. Yes. And so I said, you said frailty. I'm using the word fragile. Right? Because frailty can mean, it contextualizes relative, but then it can also, in a sense, defer to weakness. And that would be appropriate. But for the sake of the point that I'm making here, the fragile aspect is the part of us that requires delicacy. The part of us that requires compassion. The parts of us that require empathy, that can only run on love. Because there are parts of us, of all of us, that can only run on love. So if we're not getting compassion, if we're not getting empathy, and if we're not loving ourselves, and if we're not passionate and creative, then there are great attributes and aspects of ourselves that cannot be unlocked and will not be able to move and expand accordingly. And you'll say, well, it's not my fault. I didn't have a family. I don't have a support system. I don't have a lot of friends. I feel alone in the world. Then find something you love. Find a way to contribute love to the world. Find a way to make people feel loved, to help people feel loved. There's always a way. There's always a path. There's always a light. And in a time and in a world of darkness, the people that actually have the foresight and the ability and the capability to be intentional about love. Again, we're talking about making decisions, selecting your reality. So I don't want to hear the black woman is the most mistreated, the most abused, the most unloved, the most unprotected. Malcolm X said it, and I love him to death and to the moon and back because it was powerful when he said it and it's powerful and relative now. But I don't want to live in that world. That's not what I'm projecting into the future. That's not part of my future reality. Malcolm had to say it for me to get proper context and proper perspective. Thank you so much, my brother. Let there be weed hated. What does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. Let me show you guys this video real quick. Wait, I think I have a couple more. Shadow government being revealed. NWO vulnerable. Elite occult trafficking exposed. Banking cartel spotlighted. Hollywood illusion shattered. Media empire crumbling. Mass awakening beginning. We're watching the death of the control matrix in real time. And so, if we can see the world, Satan's world toppling, if we can see all things done in the dark will be brought into light, we're seeing revelations happening in front of us, right? We're seeing all of these extreme polarities of consciousness happening all around us. And so, again, are we being decisive in how we're operating in the world right now? Are we selecting and selecting the reality, or are we reacting to the scarcity, the lack-based consciousness, there are no good men, there are no good women, the white man ain't gonna never let us do ... The hour has come, the veil will be torn apart, secrets kept for centuries will spill into the open, there is nowhere to hide, the ones who ruled from the dark will be dragged into the light. This is about to be the hour of shock and awe. I was just in all of the exposés being done about the files that were released and whatnot. And I saved some of these videos just because I saved stuff because eventually they're probably going to try to wipe it all clean. So I'm a maintainer of knowledge and information. I save stuff just for future references, right? So I'm saving a lot of this content, but I'm also mindful of how much I'm taking in. They were showing one of the images of a little girl, looked like she was 5 or 6 in an indecent, situation, blurred, but still so I can see enough, and talking about eating babies and all of this salacious, disgusting, despicable behavior that unbeknownst to many people has been happening right amongst us, hidden in plain sight. So you have to be able to, if you've danced with your own darkness, right? If you've had to deal with your lower nature, if you've had to check yourself and deal with your flaws and your bullshit, hopefully you have. If you've had to come face to face with the parts of yourself that are no longer serving you, then welcome to the real game. This is the real game right here. But in the same way that the veil being lifted on the elites, right, on the people that in that world, right, at the very tip top of the pyramid of Satan's world, right, it's the same, the microcosm and the macrocosm. So I want to share this video. It is a sister who's being interviewed, and she's talking about her experience as a Delta in the pledging process with the sororities, right? And so I want to show this because this is the microcosm, one of the microcosms to the macrocosm when it comes to all this stuff they're getting ready to be revealed about how wicked and salacious these people are in their I would say in their bedrooms, but we're talking about their dungeons, right? And all this stuff that a lot of us have been knowing about for a very long time now. And so again, it's shock and awe for some people, but for others amongst us, we are already primed and prepped for this shit. Really been looking for and having our eye on Satan in high places and low places. So the Bill Gates of the world, but then also that weird ass uncle that keeps coming around that everybody knows is mishandling or mistouching children, but nobody seems to do anything about it. Macrocosm, microcosm. The same way Black culture upholds and showers the pimp culture with, you know what I mean? How do pimps become icons in our culture? That shit is just fascinating for me. And I'm from Oakland, so I have a right to ask the question. I grew up in a world where this behavior, this way of life was being celebrated. So Ghislaine Maxwell is a problem, but Bishop Magic Don Juan isn't. Make it make sense. And especially, I'm more keen to the ones that are misappropriately handling our children.
18, and 19-year-old girls. So I'm not a victim. I brought over 4 lines and I abused 4 lines full of girls. I manipulated them. I sat there and looked these girls' moms in their face and told them that I was taking care of their kids, and I was sitting there abusing their children. All these people, oh my gosh, Epstein, and we should expose. No, we're about to expose you. They set up the altar and they put it at the front of a church and they desecrate the altar.
Whoa.
You would have to repeat the founders over and over and over again, necromancy. If you tell, you going to jail and you getting kicked out of school. Y'all should have walked away. We're implicated. If you got hurt that night, they would drop you off at the hospital and they would all come together and come with a corroborative story. You had Deltas that worked at the police station, everything. We did that to 2 girls. We went under investigation and we all got in a room and lied and corroborated our story that we didn't know them. They had a thing called digging for worms that we would do outside blindfolded, where we would dig and dig and dig until our nails bled. Where if you was the girl that had the nicest hair on the line, they would put all types of concoctions and they would ruin your hair.
No.
Yes, they would. We ate dog food. The reason that they can get away with it is because of Hell Night. People are not telling the truth. It would be grace from God if I went to jail. Did we hurt people? What? We brutally hurt people.
No.
Oaths, rituals, necromancy. We was doing spells almost every night. So your memory is gone. Ask people in the comments, majority of them cannot even remember half of the stuff that they did. It's 9 candles that you light in the Sigma, and they have 9 words, and each day we do a ritual to those words. And all 9 of those words are a blasphemous take on the 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit. It's a dark room. It has a red candle and a white candle because the deity attached to Delta is Minerva. Minerva is the goddess of wisdom, and we would light that candle to usher the spirit of the wisdom into the atmosphere. We need a female deity. Jesus ain't it. And they would take your hand and you would be hand in hand and say, I light the torch of wisdom. I invite in myself a new life force, which is Delta Sigma Theta. You walk away singing this little light of mine. We had God present. Yeah, you had God present so you could blaspheme him.
So when we talk about spiritual warfare, right, and this is mass energy harnessing. So this is one form of energy harnessing, right? Thank you so much, Renee. I appreciate the Cash App. This is one form of energy harnessing, right? She just laid it out. In the conversation I was having earlier today, I was telling the sister about energy harnessing and how a lot of times women, we go in these relationships and we get our energy siphoned, right? And so you come into the relationship beautiful and shiny and, and energy and frequency strong. And then all of a sudden you go into the dynamic of pouring into him and lifting him up and supporting him and all the things that a woman is supposed to do for a man, right? But it's not reciprocal. And so it's a one-way transmission. Now, if it's reciprocal, then you guys don't need to start arguments in my comments. That goes without saying. We're not talking about equally yoked relationships. We're talking about the continuity, and many women have this experience, and 90% of them in the chat room will, or in the conversation, will agree at one point or another, where you pour all of your shiny, all of your intelligence, all of your creativity, all of your worldly acumen, right, into a man. And so now he's getting shinier and shinier and prettier, and you're getting duller and grayer. And your life force energy is not as strong. Your aura and electromagnetic field is not as strong. This is that concept of equally yoked. There's layers to that, right? And so especially if you're a spiritual woman, you can't just be giving your access to yourself to just anybody, because what did I say earlier? A lot of us, we are engaging with people that are actively lowering our vibration. And everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of us watching this and listening to this will be able to identify someone or something in their life that is actively lowering their frequency and vibration. That's a decision, that's a choice. I was watching some of the replay of the State of the Union from Donald Trump. I could never just sit down and watch all of that. First of all, I don't believe none of this shit. I don't believe that it's so. It's not even. Listen, I'm one of those people that I'm not so conscious that I threw my TV out. Right? I like film. I like acting. I love to see character out. Dramas, theatrics. I'm here for it all. Like I love good action movies. I love horror. Well, I won't say I love horror. I'm here for a good horror. I just like the theater, acting, right? And I can watch a good movie and be able to see the program and be able to filter out the program or to decipher the program or whatever it is, the messaging, the symbolism, etc., and still be able to enjoy the movie, right? That's you learn how to compartmentalize. And so I appreciate a good movie and a good film. I say that also recognizing that Hollywood is Satan's vision board. I saw that they are getting ready to have the first gay character in, oh man, was it Star Trek? 99% it was Star Trek, right? And so why did I bring that up? Because it just it just popped up in my mind, and that's a very intentional how they're moving in terms of you can't think that this industry that we agree is at the forefront of destroying the morality of society, race baiting a war between white people and black people, magnifying all of this chaos and this insanity and wickedness. And they're doing it intentionally across all fronts. But then they're making an exception for the LGBTQ community and making sure to show positive reflections and include them and make them feel inclusive. Like, no, the inclusivity is part of the agenda. They're not here to raise or to edify or to uplift any of us. They just use us according to whatever the program or whatever the intention is at that point. But so I'm watching clips of Trump. I don't believe any of this shit, right? It's not, you know what I mean? It's just like he's the useful idiot, and they've basically given him the green light to say and do whatever he wants. And if he colors too far outside the lines, they'll reel him back in, right? And he's talking about DEI, and he's cheering himself on for, he said he ended DEI in America. The Trump administration's repeated attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion have had a chilling effect on corporate America, but they haven't killed DEI overall, right? Or outright. So this is an article. I'm not going to read the article. I just wanted to remember that for the title, because I knew when I asked myself, what does DEI even mean? And I knew what the acronym stood for, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've even talked about this and picked this apart in different headline news episodes, right? But I wanted to really get a right now perspective. What does DEI even mean? Because I've been repeating this, but I've been hearing this. This concept is so active in the collective consciousness. What does this shit really even mean? DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, an organizational framework designed to promote the fair treatment, full participation, and representation of all people, particularly groups historically underrepresented or discriminated against based on identity, ability, or background. It aims to foster a welcoming, belonging, and equitable environment. Diversity is the presence of difference within a setting, including race, gender, age, religion, sexual orientation, physical ability, and socioeconomic status. Equity is the act of ensuring fair processes and outcomes by acknowledging and addressing structural barriers that create unequal opportunities. Inclusion is creating an environment where everyone feels welcomed, respected, supported, and valued, ensuring that they can finally participate. And then the context It says, while originally stemming from civil rights movements, DEI has become a widely adopted framework in workplaces and institutions to foster belonging. Recently, it has become a subject of intense political debate, with critics arguing it leads to unfair preferences or quotas, while supporters maintain it is necessary for fairness and reducing systematic bias. Now, do you know why this is a fugazi? And what is the most clear indication that this is a program? That this concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the breakdown that I just read does not exist, has never existed. In American politics, in American society, in the race dichotomy, in the education dichotomy, and all of the things, it's never actually existed. So now here we find ourselves in 2026 for like the last 2 years specifically, where we've all been on this hamster wheel about DEI and chopping, cutting jobs, and people being favored based on race and not actual, ability and capability, right? But it's all a part of a program. And so decisions and selecting your reality, I think that we as a people in particular really need to have, like, I want to say a think tank, but that's not even really the word I want to say. I don't know, I'm still conceiving this part in my mind, but we need to be able to harness our energy and our collective attention and be intent about certain things specifically. Like, I believe if we came together and had like a mass meditation where, like, let's say we could get 10,000 of us collectively on the same page, where we could come together in a physical space at one point during the year. And I'm talking about the light bearers, right? I'm talking about those of us who have learned to like navigate this world and walk in this world with one, in this world, but not of this world, and come together and really be very intentional in our meditation, and maybe fast together, and like we could rewrite the narrative and start to manifest in a physical way the new earth. I believe that 100%. And so in having these type of conversations with you guys, because this is the stuff I really want to talk about, this is the space I really want to try to steer us into. I do videos about celebrities and they get way more views. And I do videos about these type of things that I know that God has placed in my mind and in my heart as like a direction for me. And then I follow the direction, and then I see, it works, or not just that, but the great minds and the master teachers and the angels that have been placed among us to help us figure this shit out. Like, yeah, we got to figure this shit out. It's 2026. The article Owning the Weather by 2025. I've been referencing this book. I referenced it in the Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs, which I put out in 2015. I've been referencing this document. And so it came up in one of my consultations the other day. We were talking about it. And so she sent me a text and asked me to send her this paper, which made me go on my phone and find it and look it up and send it to her. And so in doing that, I just kind of perused through it. And it was so surreal because I could remember the first time that I read that paper, and how in my mind, part of my mind was like, there's no way they could do this. And then another part of my mind was like, they're actually going to do this. And so to have the audacity to set a goal to own the weather by 2025. I mean, the kahunas of these people just never ceases to amaze me. That's why I say, when I say the stakes are high, that's what I'm talking about. Like, Satan is playing, these people are playing at the highest level of creation, of science, of mathematics, of technology. And I feel like if we can magnify that, not their intention, but just the magnitude of the moment, right? It's extreme polarities happening everywhere. So the pendulum can still swing in our favor. We can still stay on the abundance and gratitude frequency and thrive in the midst of chaos and insanity and war and rumors of war and the continuous depravity of human society and like the whole moral compass thing. And we shouldn't have to have conversations about what's like morally acceptable or not. Like, yeah, there's intricacies to it, but there's some like base level human dignity shit that we should just know of by now. We're not even creating a reality and creating an environment where children can thrive. So the divine feminine has to be brought back into the center, and that's what we're going through. It's a really interesting time. The 50 Cent and Ti rap battle. I put this in my rap battle beef. It's really an interesting thing because in that dynamic between the two of them, I can kind of see like the Kendrick and the Drake element in terms of like a more positive, healthy visual and representation, even if it's just Ti and his family dynamic, right? I've had my disagreement and issues with him in the years, and it's all on wax on my YouTube channel, right? But I think that he definitely represents the evolution of hip hop and how you can, sort of come into the industry rapping about and maintaining a certain type of frequency and then evolve. And I feel like he has done that. But then you got 50 Cent, who to me represents like this real antagonizing spirit that has been allowed to operate in the industry untouched for a long time now and unchecked for a long time now, right? And so the same way with Jay-Z, the same way with 50 Cent, they're not gonna let any of them go untouched. We're about to see all of these people, the domino effect, and it'll happen for, I don't think it's all gonna be like played out in the court where everybody's gonna get charges filed against them and then end up in court fighting for their freedom like Diddy. Like this can play out in a lot of different ways, but it's already happening. Your name getting associated with Epstein and like the ramifications of that business wise in terms of, having a child accuse you of of these things. It's all humiliating. And that's the bandwidth of consciousness that the devil is playing on. And so look again at the video we just saw of the sister talking about the hazing rituals and the humiliation rituals. That's the same frequency, same bandwidth of consciousness that we're talking about is happening in Bohemian Grove and, this wicked shit going on behind closed doors in Hollywood. So it's still the macrocosm and it's still the microcosm. Donald Trump represents a bandwidth of consciousness in American culture that has to die. But before the head gets severed, that energy, that frequency has to come out in full light. We got to see it for what it really is. So all of the Karens, right, and all of the weirdo super duper right wing Christian evangelic, race warriors and all of this weird ass down south Bible Belt Ku Klux Klan energy that's like active in the vibration. Like, yes, Donald Trump is absolutely doing his part. This is spiritual warfare. All things done in the dark will be brought into light. They are showing themselves, not only to us, but to the world. So our job is to maintain a certain type of frequency. And the point about like selecting your reality and being decisive right now, I don't just mean like where am I going to move or like making a career choice, the big things in life, those big decisions. Yes, I mean those things, but I also mean like the day-to-day stuff about ourselves that we're avoiding. Some of us need therapy and we know it, and we won't take that extra step to get some sort of assistance in order to meet ourselves where we're ready to go. Right? If you've been telling yourself, I might need to talk to somebody, or I might need to get help, or I might need to get, even in your physical body, you feel chronic pain and you haven't taken the actions to go and get that and figure that out. Right? When I came to LA, I found the Chinese herbalist in Gardenia, $40 for an office visit. I'm in LA. This is one of the most expensive places to live in the world. But there is Chinese herbalists all sprinkled throughout, and not just Chinese herbalists. There's plenty of, health and well-being spaces, but this was the particular one that I found at that time that I got exactly what I. So for me, like having an issue in my body and not addressing it right away is not even an option. We've got millions of people in America living with chronic pain. Make it make sense. But that's a decision. I decided I was going to heal myself from carpal tunnel syndrome, and I did. I was decided that I had knee pain and pain in my pain in my right knee that was connected to pain in my right foot. And I knew what it was from, and I knew when it started, and I decided that I was going to heal it, and I did. So, like, really being decisive right now, man, some of us need to tighten up mentally. If your mind is getting the best of you, like I was saying in to the sister in the climbing the ladder of herself, when she so bravely was pointing out, like, I'm in a moment right now where my mind is actively working against me. And she shared that with us as a group. And so some of us need to be fine tuning ourselves mentally, checking our thoughts, driving, taking control of the ship. If you want a 35% of what I want and 65% of what I don't want in the rumination in your mind, then you need to switch drivers. And the new you and the intentional you and the focused you needs to be driving the ship moving forward. But you got to be even tapped in with yourself to even be able to analyze this. I'm just checking the chat room real quick. I brought up the 50 Cent and the yeah, that's what I needed to see. I brought up the 50 Cent and T.I. Conversation because that situation, like the Kendrick and Drake situation, is kind of like little chinks in the armor, right, of Satan, because it makes you look at the troll, like somebody said in the comments. It makes you look at the troll and the representation of this type of frequency and how it's so active in the consciousness, but how detrimental it is, right? That we got this man who could just be so disrespectful to, I'm talking about T.I.'s wife in particular, but then like the family dynamic and it's just it's he represents to me a court jester type of personality that is doing the upper bidding in the upper echelons of the people that are in power, right? But he's so good at what he does, like Donald Trump. Donald Trump and 50 Cent have really similar frequencies. They're both antagonists, master antagonists. And if you've read 48 Laws of Power, then like the way that the antagonist is navigating and moving in the world. So what does an antagonist do? Activate all the other antagonists. That's the frequency and bandwidth of consciousness. But the flip side is, if you start dedicating all your time and energy against fighting the antagonist, guess what bandwidth of consciousness you're in now? That's the fine line and the rope that we're walking in this timeline right now, being able to maintain your peace, your sanity, being actively building the world that you aspire to, the person that you aspire to become, thinking about, being intentional about that, because most of us aren't. I say Hollywood has been adamant for the last 30 and 40 years of planting negative concepts and imagery and what they're planning on creating in our world in our lifetime. All this shit's supposed to happen in our lifetime, right? So they've been actively planting in the subconscious mind through all the bells and whistles to try to make you believe the illusion. So what if you just spent a little bit of time without all the bells and whistles, but just going into your mind's eye and thinking about the best case scenario and thinking about the business actually succeeding and thinking about creating something and providing a service or an experience for the world that adds value, that people will pay you for, that you can be well compensated for, that you can do something that you love and add value in the world and do good and all of the things, right? But at the same time, not have to be a slave to this shit. This is when I watch the Donald Trump State of the Union, all I see is, I don't even see Trump. I see in the Wizard of Oz, you know, the end of the story is that it's this little pencil neck punk, right? Behind the scenes running the whole show. But he's really a coward. No, his power is his anonymity, and his power is the tools that he has amassed in order to be able to run the show. But when it's just him, he's nothing. And so when I'm looking at Trump, when I'm watching this political theater, I don't even see these people. I just see the guy behind that you can't see controlling the scenes. So I'm not impressed by any of it. I don't believe any of it. It's hard for me to take any of it seriously. And I think that that's sort of like a streamlined way of thinking that we're going to have to be moving forward, because last week it was posting Barack and Michelle being monkeys. And we all got fired up and responded to that and made content and, you know, went, you know, got fired up about that. He's only been in office for a year now. We're going to have to find a way to control ourselves in the collective consciousness and stop letting the knee-jerk reactions and stop letting this shit affect us, because he's an antagonist. He's a master antagonist. They have given him the green light. Donald Trump is not a glitch in the matrix, first of all, because he went and kissed that wall over in the Middle East with that small hat on his head, right? So we know who he serves, we know who he works for. So everything that he's doing right now is a part of a bigger agenda. Everything we're seeing in mainstream media that's actually getting attention, even Jay-Z just being in the Epstein files, and now Jay-Z's been, you know, he hasn't been found any wrongdoing. The fact his name keeps trending and keeps being attached and aligned to these things. So yeah, I think I said everything that, oh, no, I didn't. Wait a minute. So let me come back to my original point, and then I'm going to let you guys go. And thank you so much for rocking with me. I've been talking for 2 hours now. That wasn't my intention, but I didn't really have a timeline. I just, you know, these are all like thoughts and stuff that's going on in my mind as I'm trying to figure it out, right? Do you have authority do you have authority in and over your own life? That's a hell of a question. Do you have authority in or over your life? And you might say, well, you know, I have it in terms of business, but I'm in a relationship that's smothering me and right, or holding me back, or I'm in a great, loving, fulfilling relationship, but you know, I really want to have something for myself outside, maybe start a business, or you know, whatever. All the different ways that kind of like can play out in our individual lives. Are you actively on a path that you have chosen where you can say, yeah, I have authority in and over my life. I've been steering this ship. I've been consciously choosing the path that I'm on, the place that I'm in right now, the things that I've acquired, the lessons that I've learned, the jobs, the relationships, the experiences, the friends, all of the situations. Are you in charge, right, of steering that ship? He also said, Neville said, a decision is faith in motion. And I was thinking about the idea of bracing for disappointment, right? Which is what most of us are doing, especially right now. And because I know that's something that I've done my whole life, right? Because of my upbringing, like it's something that I've unconsciously been doing. And so attracting circumstances, experiences, and events that keep me bracing for disappointment, right? And to the point about selecting our reality, right? And being mindful of how we're thinking and how we're projecting. I think that it would be, we really need to start. This is why it's important to have something that you love and to have a passion and a creativity, right? Because when you're doing that, when you're honed in and focused in whatever that direction is for you, it's automatically like adding to that energy field that I'm talking about. The energy field of expecting good things to happen, expecting God to have our back, expecting the universe to have our back, expecting the money to come through, right? Expecting the money to come through, expecting the bills to be paid, expecting there to be more than enough, expecting there'll be more than enough water for all of us. What's the common conversation? All the conversation about water right now, even people who are like, actively in the world of conservation, it's like this very scarcity based language based around water. No, there will always be enough water for all of us. So that's the macrocosm. And I'm just using that as an example because, again, in our minds right now, we're working against ourselves. And I really think the cell phone towers and the frequencies of all of this technology is affecting our thinking. I do. I think it's something that we need to consistently be mindful and aware of, and like really take time to do things without technology at all. Because I think they are, in a number of different ways, implanting thoughts and implanting moods and implanting, states of consciousness in people. That's the level that we're playing at in this game right now. So the information for climbing the ladder of yourself is in the description. The information for the 1-day consultation, 50% off, is in the description. My contact information is in the description. I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation. I just want to set a different type of tone. I want to talk about the stuff that everybody, I don't want to talk about the stuff everybody's talking about, even though I talked about some of that stuff. But for me, like your personal power and how you benefit from these conversations, and hopefully me saying something that'll reach you in a space or clarity, or that's the stuff that really matters to me. So thank you guys for thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the love. Thank you guys for purchasing my books, for supporting what I do. I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate the fact that I can come and talk for 2 hours, right? And talk about the stuff that is important to me and that I want to talk about and hone in on, and that you guys show up and you listen and you care about what I have to say. And that really matters to me. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time and attention. And I will see you beautiful people very soon. Peace and love.